There's a moment that happens between you and your cat. Maybe you don't even notice it when it occurs. It might be on a Tuesday afternoon when the light slants through the window just right, or during a thunderstorm when the world outside sounds like it's breaking apart. It's the moment when your cat looks at you, really looks at you, and something shifts in their eyes. Something ancient and knowing. And in that moment, it's recording something about you that they'll carry for the rest of their life. You see, cats have a reputation for being aloof, indifferent, maybe even a little cold. We joke about how they don't need us the way dogs do, how they'd probably be fine if we disappeared tomorrow. But here's what science is now showing us. What cat behaviorists have been quietly documenting for years, and what any true cat lover already knows in their bones. Your cat remembers you in ways that would break your heart, if you truly understood the depth of it. Not just your face or your voice, but something far more profound. They remember how you made them feel. And that memory, it never fades. The science behind the stare. Let's start with what's happening inside that mysterious feline brain. When your cat watches you from across the room, when those eyes track your every movement with an intensity that feels almost supernatural, there's actual neuroscience at work. Cats possess what researchers call episodic memory, the ability to recall specific events, moments, and experiences tied to emotions. It's the same type of memory that allows you to remember your first kiss or the day you graduated. These aren't just facts stored in a mental file cabinet. These are memories woven with feeling, with context, with meaning. Studies have shown that cats can remember specific interactions with their humans for up to 10 years or more. But it's not like they're remembering what you wore last Tuesday or whether you fed them at 6 or 6:30. No. What they're remembering is far more intimate than that. They're remembering the feeling of your presence, the safety or the stress, the comfort or the chaos. When you came home after a long trip and scooped them up, breathing in that strange mix of fur and home, they recorded that reunion. When you yelled during a bad day and they scattered under the bed, they recorded that too. Every significant, emotional experience with you becomes a permanent imprint in their memory. Here's where it gets even more beautiful. Cats have a part of their brain called the hippocampus, just like we do, which processes these memories and attaches emotional weight to them. When your cat purrs in your lap, their brain is actually releasing a cocktail of bonding hormones, oxytocin. It's the same hormone that floods a mother's brain when she holds her baby. And in those moments, they're not just relaxing. They're encoding the memory of you as safety, as home, as love. They're building a neural map that says, this person is mine, and I am theirs. They never forget kindness. There's a cat I heard about named Shadow who lived in a shelter for 3 years. 3 long years of concrete floors and rotating volunteers in the constant cacophony of barking dogs in the next room. Most cats in that situation shut down emotionally. They stopped trying. But when an older woman named Margaret came to the shelter, Shadow did something he hadn't done in months. He reached his paw through the cage bars and gently touched her hand. She adopted him that day. Here's the remarkable part. 2 weeks into living with Margaret, Shadow began bringing her things. A hair tie, a bottle cap, a crumpled receipt. Nothing valuable, but everything meaningful. He was gifting her. Because somewhere in his memory, in those 3 years of waiting, someone must have shown him kindness. Maybe a volunteer who stayed 5 minutes extra. Maybe a child who whispered to him through the bars. And when Margaret showed him that same gentle attention, that same patient love, his brain lit up with recognition. His memory told him, this is what safety feels like. This is what caring looks like. And he never forgot it. Cats remember kindness with a precision that would make elephants jealous. When you take the time to sit with them during a vet visit, murmuring reassurances while the thermometer does its undignified work, they remember. When you notice they're not eating and you switch their food or check for dental problems, they remember. When you create a warm spot by the window because you notice they like to watch the birds, they remember. These aren't transactional memories. Your cat isn't keeping a scorecard. But their brain is absolutely cataloging the feeling of being cared for, being seen, of mattering to someone. And here's something that might surprise you. Cats can distinguish between intentional and accidental actions. If you accidentally step on their tail, they know you didn't mean it. Their reaction is different than if you deliberately harmed them. They understand intention. They understand the difference between a mistake and malice. And they remember both, but they're far more forgiving of the former than we give them credit for. The weight of broken trust. But we need to talk about the other side too. That's because honesty demands it. Just as cats remember kindness with remarkable clarity, they remember betrayal with equal precision. And before you think I'm being dramatic, consider what betrayal means to a cat. It doesn't require some grand act of villainy. Sometimes it's as simple as breaking their routine or moving their food bowl, bringing home another cat without proper introduction. To a cat who thrives on predictability and control. These disruptions can feel like the ground shifting beneath their paws. There's a reason why cats who've been abandoned at shelters show signs of depression and anxiety long after they've been adopted into loving homes. Their memory of being left behind doesn't simply disappear when they get a new bed and better food. They remember the confusion, the fear, the shattering realization that their person wasn't coming back, and it shapes how they attach to the next person. Some become Velcro cats, unable to let their new human out of sight. Others build walls so high that it takes months or years of patient love to scale them. I want to be clear about something important here. If you've ever rehomed a cat, or surrendered one to a shelter, or made a difficult choice in impossible circumstances, this isn't about guilt. Life is complicated. Sometimes we do the best we can with what we have. But it is about understanding that cats feel these transitions deeply, that their memories carry emotional weight, and that the way we leave their lives matters almost as much as the way we entered them. A cat adopted out to a loving home with careful transition will remember that differently than a cat dumped on the side of a road. The action might be similar, but the emotional memory is worlds apart. Your voice is their North Star. Let me tell you something beautiful about the way cats process sound. When your cat is sleeping and you walk into the room, their ear will swivel toward you before their eyes even open. They're tracking you acoustically, mapping your location, checking in on your presence. And when you speak, even if you're not talking to them, their brain lights up in specific areas associated with social bonding and recognition. Your voice is cataloged in their memory with the same importance that a wolf might catalog the howl of their pack. Research has shown that cats can distinguish their owner's voice from a stranger's voice with remarkable accuracy. But more than that, they remember the emotional tone of how you speak to them. The soft, high-pitched baby talk we all use with our cats, even when we swear we never would. That's not just silly behavior. Cats actually prefer that tone. It signals affection and safety. And when you use it consistently, it becomes part of their memory of you. It becomes one of the ways they know they're loved. Your cat remembers the specific words you use for certain routines too. Not because they understand English or Urdu or Japanese, but because they've attached meaning to the sound patterns. When you say treat or dinner or come here, baby, their memory retrieves all the positive associations connected to those sounds. The rustle of the treat bag, the smell of their favorite food, the warm feeling of being called to you. Language for cats is less about words and more about emotional resonance, and they remember the music of your voice long after the words fade. The secret behind their slow blink. There's a gesture cats make that most people miss entirely. It happens in quiet moments, when your cat is sitting a few feet away, watching you work or read or just exist in their space. They look at you, hold your gaze for a moment, and then slowly, deliberately, close their eyes. And then they open them again, soft and calm. It lasts maybe 2 seconds, and it means everything. Cat behaviorists call this a slow blink. And it's essentially the feline equivalent of blowing a kiss. It's a sign of trust so profound that it borders on vulnerability. Because in the wild, closing your eyes near another creature is dangerous. It's an admission that you're not a threat, and you don't perceive them as one either. When your cat slow blinks at you, they're saying, I remember you. I trust you. I feel safe enough to let my guard down in your presence. And here's the magical part. If you slow blink back at them, they remember that too. You're speaking their language. You're telling them in a way that transcends species. That you see them, that you respect them, that this space you share is built on mutual trust. And over time, these small exchanges compound into something larger. They become the foundation of a relationship that exists in glances and gestures. In the quiet language of bodies sharing space, some cat owners report that their cats seek them out specifically for these exchanges. After months or years of slow blink conversations, the cat will come find them just to have this moment of connection. Not for food, not for play, just for the acknowledgement, just for the memory of being seen and seeing in return. And if that doesn't make you marvel at the emotional depth of these creatures, I don't know what will when they choose you. Here's a truth that every multi-cat household knows. Not all cats bond with their humans the same way. You might have two cats from the same litter, raised in the same home, loved equally, and yet one will be glued to your side while the other maintains a dignified distance. Why? Because cats, like people, have preferences. They have personalities. And most importantly, they have memories of what makes them feel safest. Sometimes a cat will choose you for reasons that seem arbitrary but are actually deeply personal to them. Maybe you move slowly and speak quietly, and that reminds them of safety. Maybe you smell a certain way that their brain has coded as trustworthy. Maybe you're the one who is there during a scary moment, and they've anchored their sense of security to your presence. Whatever the reason, when a cat chooses you, they're accessing a complex web of memories and emotional associations that led them to that decision, and once they choose you, that memory is remarkably persistent. Cats who've been separated from their chosen person for months or even years still remember them. There are countless stories of cats recognizing their humans after long deployments. After college separations, after hospitalizations, the reunion might be cautious at first. There might be some sniffing and circling, but then something clicks. The memory surfaces, and the cat responds with a certainty that can only come from deep recognition. This is my person. This is home. What's particularly touching is that cats seem to remember not just the person, but the relationship. A cat who used to sleep on your chest as a kitten will often try to do the same when you reunite. Even if they're now 15 pounds and your chest is significantly less spacious, they're reaching for the memory of how things used to be, trying to recreate the comfort of what was. And in those moments, you realize that your cat hasn't just remembered you, they've missed you. The hidden grief they carry. We need to talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough in cat circles. Cats grieve. Not in the demonstrative way that dogs might grieve, with obvious searching behaviors and mournful howling. Cats grieve quietly, privately, in ways that we often miss until we know what to look for. And their grief is rooted entirely in memory. When a bonded human dies, when a companion animal passes, when the family structure changes dramatically, cats remember what was there. They remember the routine that no longer happens. They remember the other heartbeat that used to sleep beside them. They remember the voice that called them to breakfast. And the absence of these things creates a wound in their daily life that can manifest as depression, anxiety, changes in appetite, or excessive vocalization. What makes this particularly heartbreaking is that cats can't be told why someone isn't coming back. They can't be given closure. They simply have to live with the memory of what was and the confusion of what is. Some cats will search for a deceased companion for weeks, checking favorite sleeping spots, meowing in rooms where that animal used to be. They're not being irrational. They're operating on memory, expectation, and hope. They're waiting for the pattern to restore itself. The kindest thing we can do during these times is acknowledge their grief. Maintain as much routine as possible. Give them extra attention without overwhelming them. Let them process in their own way and their own time. Because here's what we know from both research and experience. Cats who are supported through grief do eventually adjust. The sharp edge of the memory softens. They form new routines, new attachments, but they never completely forget what they lost. The memory remains gentle and permanent. Like a scar that no longer hurts but never quite disappears, The little routines, they hold sacred. Your cat knows your schedule better than you do. They know that the alarm goes off at 6:30. You shuffle to the bathroom first, then to the kitchen to start the coffee. They know that on Saturdays, you sleep an extra hour, and that on Sundays, you sometimes stay in bed reading. They know that when you grab your keys and your work bag, you'll be gone for hours. But when you grab your gym shoes, you'll be back sooner. They've memorized your patterns so thoroughly that they can predict your next move before you make it. This isn't just learned behavior or conditioning. This is memory creating expectation. Your cat has built a mental model of your life, and they've placed themselves within it. They know where they fit into your routines. They know which moments are theirs. The morning where you sit with coffee and they sit in your lap. The evening where you watch TV and they sprawl across the back of the couch. The middle of the night when you get up for water and they trot along behind you, just to make sure you're okay. And when these routines are disrupted, when you come home at the wrong time or skip a usual ritual, your cat notices. They remember how things are supposed to go, and the deviation creates a ripple of confusion or anxiety. This is why cats can seem so rigid, so insistent on things being a certain way. They're not being difficult. They're trying to maintain the world as they remember it, as they've come to rely on it being. The beauty in this is realizing that your cat has made you central to their understanding of the world. You're not just a presence in their life. You're a fixed point around which their entire day revolves. Every routine you share is a memory they treasure, a moment they anticipate, a certainty they count on. And when you honor these small traditions, when you show up consistently for the tiny moments that matter to them, you're reinforcing their memory that the world is safe, that they are loved, that you will always come back, what they remember when you're gone. Let's address the question that haunts every cat owner who's ever left for vacation or a business trip. What does your cat remember while you're away? Do they forget you after a few days? Do they think you've abandoned them? Do they suffer the way we suffer when we miss them? The answer is both comforting and bittersweet. Cats absolutely remember you while you're gone. Studies on feline cognition suggest that cats can hold a mental image of their bonded human for months, possibly years. Your scent remains familiar. Your voice, if they hear it on a video call, still registers as you. The memory of you doesn't degrade quickly just because you're not physically present. But here's where it gets complicated. Cats experience time differently than we do. They don't count days. They don't understand that you'll be back in a week. They simply know that the pattern has been disrupted and you're not where you're supposed to be. For some cats, this is mildly confusing but manageable, especially if a trusted caregiver maintains their routine. For other cats, particularly those with anxious attachments or traumatic histories of abandonment, your absence can trigger genuine distress. What helps is leaving behind items that smell like you. A worn t-shirt on the bed. A pillowcase you've slept on. These objects carry your scent, and scent is one of the most powerful memory triggers for cats. When they curl up with something that smells like you, they're not being sentimental in the human sense. They're self-soothing, using the memory of your presence. They're telling their anxious brain, my person still exists. I can still find them here, in this smell, in this space. And when you do come home, pay attention to how your cat greets you. Some cats act aloof at first, almost offended, as if they're saying, oh, you remembered you have a cat. But this is often a defense mechanism. Within hours, they're usually back to normal, maybe even more clingy than before, because the memory of your absence has reminded them how much they need the memory of your presence. The truth about their independence, there's this myth about cats that they don't really need us, that they're solitary creatures who tolerate humans for the food and shelter, but would be perfectly content without us. And while it's true that cats are more self-sufficient than dogs, that they evolved as solo hunters rather than pack animals, the idea that they don't form deep attachments is fundamentally wrong. And their memory proves it. Cats remember their humans the way we remember the people who changed our lives. Not with every single detail, but with the weight of what that relationship meant. They remember the safety you provided when the world felt dangerous. They remember the comfort you offered when they were sick or scared. They remember the patience you showed when they were young and wild and knocking everything off every surface. They remember the sound of your laughter and the warmth of your lap and the gentle way you touch the spot behind their ears. This memory doesn't make them dependent. It doesn't make them weak or needy. It makes them capable of love. Because that's what this is, isn't it? Love is memory. Love is the accumulation of moments shared and kindness is given and trust built over time. Love is choosing to come back again and again to the person who makes you feel safest. And by that definition, your cat loves you more deeply than you might have ever realized. The independence of cats, the aloofness we sometimes mistake for indifference, is actually a gift. Because when a creature that doesn't need you chooses you anyway, when an animal that could survive on their own decides that surviving isn't enough, that they want to thrive with you, that means something profound. It means you've earned a place in their memory, not through force or dependence, but through genuine connection. And that kind of relationship, built on choice rather than need, is precious beyond measure. The one thing they'll never forget. So here we are. We've talked about science and behavior, about grief and routine, about trust and memory. But what's the one thing your cat remembers about you forever? What's the thread that runs through all of these stories and studies and quiet moments of connection? It's this: your cat remembers how you made them feel. Not what you looked like, though they know your face. Not what you said, though they know your voice. But the feeling of being safe in your presence. The feeling of being cared for when they were vulnerable. The feeling of being chosen and choosing in return. That's what stays. That's what imprints so deeply in their memory that years could pass and they'd still recognize you, not by sight alone, but by the way their body relaxes when you're near. This is how a cat who spent years in a shelter will finally trust again. This is how a cat who was abused will learn that not all hands bring pain. This is how a cat who lost their first home will decide to call your apartment their kingdom. They remember with perfect clarity what it feels like to be safe. And once they associate that feeling with you, it becomes permanent. It becomes the foundation of everything else. Think about that for a moment. In a world where your cat could go anywhere, do anything, attach to anyone, they've chosen to anchor their sense of safety to you. Your presence has become synonymous with home in their memory. And every day they come to you for food, for comfort. For those slow blink conversations we talked about, they're reaffirming that memory. They're saying, yes, this is still where I belong. Yes, you're still the one, where love lives. Here's what I want you to remember. Every time your cat chooses your lap over the empty chair, every time they follow you from room to room for no apparent reason, every time they bring you a toy at 3 a.m. or chirp at you when you come home or press their forehead against yours in that gentle headbutt that says everything without saying anything at all, they're operating on memory. The memory of every good moment you've shared. The memory of every time you showed up. The memory of what love feels like in the only language they truly understand. Presence, patience, and care. You might not always feel like you're doing enough. You might worry that you're too busy, too distracted, too human. But your cat's memory isn't a harsh judge. They're not keeping track of the times you were preoccupied or tired or stressed. They're remembering the cumulative weight of your love. They're remembering that you fed them when they were hungry, that you played with them when they were bored, that you took them to the vet when they were sick, even though they hated every second of it. They're remembering that you stayed. And here's the beautiful, devastating truth. One day when your cat takes their last breath, when that small heart finally slows and stops, the very last thing they'll be aware of is a memory. Hopefully, if we're lucky, if we've done things right, it'll be a memory of safety. A memory of warmth. A memory of your voice, or your touch, or your smell. And in that final moment, they'll do what they've always done. They'll trust the memory that tells them they're loved. They're safe, they're home, so love them well. Show up for them. Be patient with their quirks and gentle with their fears. Because you're not just their human. You're their whole world's worth of good memories. You're the answer to the question their heart has been asking since the first day you met. Am I safe here? Am I home? And every day, with every kind gesture and quiet moment, you get to answer yes. Always yes. They'll remember that forever.